So, I was on holiday, breathing in vast quantities of asbestos whilst renovating and knocking an extra 10 years off my life, when something dawned on me. Of the upcoming big budget movies, one major thing really stood out to me. Sequel, remake, probably rubbish, sequel, whatever the hell this is, add sequel! Now, this is hardly a new revelation, as Hollywood has been intellectually bankrupt for years. But the fact that all these movies are coming out within the next 3 months is just ludicrous. And you're probably wondering, Aussie Brit, why are you bringing these movies up? There are heaps of new movies coming out that look mildly interesting. And my wonderfully thought out answer is, because these are the ones that won't stop popping up! Seriously, I must have seen the trailers so many times I could quote the sodding things backwards. It's a rather sad state of affairs when you can watch the trailers to these films and not even be able to tentatively say it might be good, because you just know they're going to be worse than the summer spent in the Hitler Youth. Now, I have heard some people say, never bet against James Cameron, and I would normally agree, because even when he makes bad movies, they're still somewhat fascinating, even if it's just to watch the behind the scenes of how he almost killed all of his actors. But some disturbing comments have surfaced in some interviews about toxic masculinity that make me think the man is finally losing the plot after working on the same flipping movie for the last 13 years. And yes, it was 2009. 13 years ago he released the first Avatar movie. I had started high school in 2009 and graduated before he released the next movie. Both world wars combined didn't even go for that long, Cameron. What the hell have you been doing? Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Where was I? Oh yeah, the sad state of Hollywood. So, let's have a quick squiz at some of the trailers that I'm sure you're all bloody sick of seeing, just like I am. Sodding sackcloth and a salty severed sausage. The announcement of this movie really rustled my jimmies. Of all the trailers I want to look at, this is the one that upsets me the most, so I probably should have left it for last, but nah, I was always one to eat my steak before my veggies. This movie really does prove that Disney will never let anything truly die, even though we haven't had an entry into this franchise since Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which came out in 2008. I can't say I know many people who are clamoring for another entry into this franchise, especially with Harrison Ford turning 80 years old as of 2022. Harrison Ford barely scraped through Star Wars Force Awakens because the plot didn't demand that much from him physically. But this is Indiana Jones, where he is the main focus of the film. Can you see him swinging from his whip and beating up soldiers who are all going to be 50 years younger than him? How about being savvy and sharp-witted in a day and age that doesn't like cocky and suave dudes, and wants them to be demeaned and dumbed down? But fear not! Disney has a way around the first problem at least, with time travel. Oh my goodness, I can't believe the rumours were true. Indiana Jones and the Double D is going to see Indy set in the late 1960s, but time travelling back to the 1940s, with a digitally de-aged Harrison Ford. And as far as the trailer goes, he doesn't look too bad. But the idea of a trailer is to show you all the best bits and get you hyped for the actual movie. And I don't really have high hopes for the effects department to keep it together for the whole 2-hour film, especially when the rest of the film looks pretty CGI heavy. No signs of Shia LaBeouf in this one, which I'm sure most people are sighing in relief, but I noticed this trailer has some other rather dirty tricks up its sleeve to get fans excited. References to the adventure game Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis being canon, seeing Salah return for the first time since Last Crusade in 1989, and getting Mads Mikkelsen as the villain are all dirty cheap tactics to get us excited. It's fan baiting and using phenomenal actors to try and distract us from the hollowed out husk of a product this movie will be. With no Spielberg directing, no George Lucas having any creative control, Harrison Ford being older than some of the artifacts he's unearthing, and, worst of all, Kathleen Kennedy being in creative control, means this movie doesn't really have a lot going for it. It's a damn shame, because while most people didn't like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I thought it was a flawed, decent send-off for old Indy, where he got to marry Marion and live happily ever after with a cheeky little wink-wink moment with his son possibly taking up the mantle. But nah, shuffle poor old Harrison Ford out on his Zimmer frame and make him perform like the dancing monkey he is. Of all the movies coming out, all the silly Marvel movies, the weird, confusing extensions of established universes, this movie is the one I'm dreading the most.
Oh, what we do? I want to be like you.
When I first watched this trailer with a dear chum of mine, we both had the exact same reaction. Hehe, monkey. I don't have much stock in the Transformers universe. I saw the first 3 movies in the cinema and thought they were marvellous dumb fun that I can trot out every now and then when I want to watch robots go brrrr. They were pretty inoffensive until we ditched Shire again. Poor Shire, lol. And Mark Wahlberg took up the mantle, and holy crap did Transformers Age of Extinction suck on a salty sausage. Besides the movie being dumb as hell, and blatantly pandering to the Chinese market in the most hilarious way possible by making the Chinese government actually care for its citizens, the statutory rape joke was so offensive and played for laughs that I checked out and didn't even bother watching the 5th one. So, now we've got a new Transformers with no Michael Bay, no Shire, and no Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. So who do we have? Don't know, because the character's name is never mentioned. But hey, who watches these movies for the boring human characters? The only returning characters from the OG films are of course Amazon Prime and Michael Boobleby. And I'm fine with that, because again, I don't really care about anyone else, although in Age of Extinction they did introduce a John Goodman Transformer, and a Ken Watanabe Transformer? Watanabe. Yeah, Watanabe, let's go with that. A Ken Watanabe Transformer, who were pretty dope, so it would have been cool to have them still there. What am I hoping for with this film? For the special effects to look somewhat decent, and for things to go BOOM! Plot and characters, I really don't care about in films like this, which is why I still like Revenge of the Fallen, even though everyone else hates it. Just don't have any more rape jokes in this film, and don't focus too much on the humans, and let there be total carnage! Also, I am a little sad in that Prime and Monkey are on the same team, because I wanted to see them fight. But ah well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of fight scenes with the 2 of them. I remember when the trailer to the first Shazam dropped, I thought, wow, this looks positively atrocious. Then the movie came out and quickly became one of my favourite DC movies, proving that the people who make the movie and the people who make the trailers really need to discuss things before they release promotional material. Looking at you, Mummy 2017. So you can imagine my surprise when I watched this trailer and thought, wow, this looks positively atrocious. So I'm hoping we get a repeat of history here and the movie is absolutely amazing, because I've been rooting for DC to be good ever since Man of Steel came out. With James Gunn taking over the DC universe and things kinda starting to happen, I don't want Shazam to be another casualty of war like what sadly happened to Henry Cavill as Superman. The trailer seems forced and stilted, and I'm actually wondering if it's superhero movie fatigue. Marvel have done a fantastic job at completely obliterating all interest I had in the genre with their cascade of diuretic abominations being blasted out like a shotgun blast. So with the release of Shazam, I think I'm just worn out by all of it. I do really want this movie to be good, and I want to enjoy it because I loved the first one, but the trailer was just kinda meh. The jokes didn't really hit, but I do see the chemistry between the actors is still there, so maybe that will be enough to make the movie tolerable. I love Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu, and Jimon Hansu? I think that's how you pronounce it. So the acting talent is certainly there. I just hope that they'll actually work well together and won't be competing for screen time or anything, as that could be the case when too many big name actors get together. I have high hopes for this movie, but I am also cautiously optimistic. And if it bombs harder than a certain WMD, I won't be surprised. I don't have much else to say about it, because, again, the trailer is just that boilerplate. So, moving on!
Woo! Yeah, baby!
Who here remembers the glorious Dungeons and Dragons from the year 2000? Because I do. That movie came out a year before Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring, and it nearly killed off the fantasy genre for good, and for good reason. Laughable CGI, even for the time, hilarious acting, and Jeremy Irons in his greatest acting role of all time.
Right after you. Good. I can use every ounce of your rage.
The last thing I expected was for that film to get a sequel, remake, or whatever you want to call this movie. But I'm going to blame Stranger Things for this movie happening. And actually, I don't know if I want to say blame or thank, because this looks fantastic. This movie has certainly been a bee in some people's bonnet. And I think they're approaching this movie all wrong. You see, this isn't supposed to be Lord of the Rings. This is supposed to be Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yes, the owlbear is a bit dumb and breaks the law, but from everything else I've seen, this movie looks like it's being made by people who actually love the source material and want to have fun. I mean, why else would they cast Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, and Hugh Grant? I'm so going to go see this movie when it comes out, and I'll be sitting there with my big box of popcorn doing that ugly laugh with a mouthful of food all the way through it, because this movie looked great. Although, one slight nitpick. I'm from the time when Led Zeppelin refused to allow any of their songs to be used in movies, so when Zeppelin allowed School of Rock to use Immigrant Song, it was revolutionary. But this trailer made me wish Zeppelin would stop allowing people to use their music in movies, because goodness me, it reminded me when Shrek III used Immigrant Song, and how much it made me cringe. So, other than that, I don't really have any gripes with this trailer, and I'm so very excited for some goofy fun. Also, there's two directors, but one of them is John Francis Daley, who played Sweets in the TV show Bones, and this movie seems so like him. So, I have even more faith in this movie, and I mean, come on, it can't be any worse than the 2001.
You have the power of the immortals. You can control dragons.
Holy Jesus. What is that?
So, I know this isn't a sequel or a remake or anything, but I keep seeing this ugly doll everywhere, and it's not scaring me, it's just driving me friggin' crazy! This thing emotes like Tommy Wiseau when he's trying to tell Lisa she's tearing him apart.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa!
Because it looks human, but also doesn't look human, it crosses it into that uncanny valley kind of feeling, which I'm sure was the intention, but because it isn't brought up in the trailer, it makes it feel like the people in that universe look at this thing and think, "Aw, how sweet." No. Hell no. Can you imagine waking up to finding this thing sitting in the chair in the corner of your room? I'd be worried she'd be 10 seconds from cutting my face off to wear on her own face. But also, the bit in the trailer when she goes full Gollum on some poor boy who had the misfortune of being a douche to the wrong person literally had me in hysterics. The production company Blumhouse is really hit and miss when it comes to their horror films, and I feel like this is one of those misses, and just how hard they're pushing it makes me think that all the more. When a production company pays out the butt for advertisement, you can tell that they have no faith in the project, and just want to try and make back as much money as they can. The movie doesn't seem very frightening, and besides the uncanny valley look of the doll, this movie doesn't seem to have much going for it. Also, the title is stupid. Why is there a 3 in the name instead of an E? I know because the name is Model 3 Generative Android, which rolls off the tongue like a mouthful of sticky tape, but the title looks dumb, and I hate when anything tries to replace a letter with a number. So, besides another generic-looking horror movie, not much else to say about this bad boy. Moving on!
I'm Ants in My Eyes Johnson here at Ants in My Eyes Johnson's Electronics. I mean, there's so many ants in my eyes!
Before Phase 4 became the laughingstock it is today, Ant-Man was the fluffiest, most inoffensive films in the MCU. So the fact we're 3 movies in is certainly further than I thought we'd ever get. I know nothing about the comics, so this will be a completely unbiased opinion. Although that's a load of rubbish, I don't know why I said that. I have no idea who Mr. Blue Sky is supposed to be. Yes, I know it's Kang the Conqueror, but what I mean is I don't know anything about the dude, and this trailer does a rather poor job at explaining anything to my bumbling ass. All I know is that we don't like him because he wants to do something bad because Michelle Pfeiffer said so, but she has a weird last name that took me forever to spell correctly, so I'm not listening to her. Instead of actually knowing what's going on, we instead have another classic rock song, but this time it's Mr. Sir Elton John, singing his classic tune, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Now, I love this song, and I love Elton John, but like the Indiana Jones and the Double D trailer, why do we keep slowing all the songs down and putting some weird orchestra to everything? It has, in my mind, officially replaced the tired Christopher Nolan boat horn blah thing as being the most cliche thing you can do with a soundtrack. At least with the Dungeons and Dragons trailer, they just let Led Zeppelin play and didn't say, excuse me, could you please slow the song down by several time signatures and drastically drop the pitch, please? Cheers, love. I hate it! Boring soundtrack for a rather boring trailer. Although, I'm not going to lie, that "Thank You Spider-Man" line did make me chuckle. But I'm noticing that Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man, is seemingly getting less and less screen time in his own bloody movie, so that doesn't bode well, especially with the recent trend that Marvel has been pulling by replacing all the legacy characters with cardboard cutouts. And this time it looks like Scott's daughter, whose name eludes me for the moment. That's how much of an interesting character she is. Good golly, I can't wait for this movie. So yeah, trailer looks dumb and Kang looks like a monster of the week villain. So, huzzah! Next! hell even is this? Seriously! I used to watch quite a lot of Winnie the Pooh when I was a kid because I identified a lot with Tigger, because, like Tigger, I too was a total spastic that couldn't sit still. But who, with a fully functional brain, looks at this and says, yeah, I can see Jason Voorhees in this? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm gonna go see this movie, because like a gentleman who's just taken vast quantities of LSD and proceeded to run into a police station whilst removing all their clothes, this is just one of those debacles you just can't miss. I remember when the news hit that Winnie the Pooh had entered the public domain, which meant it was free game for anyone who wanted to get their hands on it, and literally within a week there was news that a horror movie was being made about it. So we've got Pooh himself, who looks like he spent too much time around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And then we've got little Piglet himself, who's turned into the bassist from Slipknot. I mean, this has to be tongue-in-cheek, but sometimes that could be worse. What makes total travesties like The Room so special is that the creator, Tommy Wiseau, took it so seriously, and what makes movies like Sharknado so sodding unbearable is that the director knows it's rubbish and wants to see how far they can push the absurdity of the situation. So, either this movie is meant to be taken dead seriously, then huzzah, I can't wait to point and laugh. Or, the movie is so tongue-in-cheek they've busted a hole in the side of their face and this movie will be worse than the Spanish flu. This movie looks like it's ticking all the boxes of the generic horror movie, with your group of clueless, no-named high schoolers going to a cabin in the woods, all of them being total airheads, and of course we have the big-titted blonde who dies first, and I'm pretty sure I saw a jock somewhere in the background. I mean, this trope has been made fun of already with fantastic movies like Cabin in the Woods and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, so do we really need another parody film of crappy 80s horror movies? I feel like you could have done more with the idea, but whatever. It's the director's directorial debut, so I suppose I can't expect Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist. Next!
Neil, who is this? What are you doing? It's a hippie, isn't it?
So, because I took so bloody long in getting this flipping video up, this movie has already been released, which is rather inconsiderate. But from what I've been hearing from reviewers who sold their souls, this movie is an absolute triumph, and well worth the 13 sodding years we had to wait for the bloody thing. But for people who have even a modicum of self-respect, I hear this movie is basically the same thing we saw in 2009. Now, what I want to know is why won't people learn to stay away from James Cameron when he's near water? Have people learnt nothing from The Abyss and Titanic? James Cameron has been trying to kill all these cast and crew via drowning and chlorine poisoning since 1989. And he won't stop until people stop agreeing to work with him. In all seriousness, this is the Duke Nukem Forever problem. You've been hyping this movie up for over a decade, and now unless the movie hands out free goodie bags and offers complimentary back rubs while you're watching, this movie is not going to live up to the immeasurable hype you've built for it, Mr. Cameron. And the fact he's got 4 more of the damn things planned, this just begs the question, what about this universe do you think has been left unsaid, James? The original film didn't have a single original bone in its body, and while it was absolutely gorgeous to look at, there was nothing about the movie that screamed so much left unsaid. So after watching the trailer, all I could think was, goodness gracious, this looks exactly like the first movie's setup. Except this time they've cut out the first half of the film where Jake betrays his own kind, all because the blue people didn't want to freaking move. My goodness, I hate this trailer so much I'm siding with the imperialistic expansionist. Good work, James! The shot of a pregnant blue person hunting was bloody laughable, because I have 3 sisters, 2 of whom have both been pregnant, and the last thing they wanted to do when they were 8 months pregnant was go chasing after some wild animal with a 10-pound bowling ball strapped to their gut. And yes, I saw the quote Mr. Cameron said about pregnant women hunting, and that it's being progressive, which made me roll my eyes so hard that they detached from their retinas and fell down the back of my skull. This movie sounds like it's going to be a disaster, and the fact that it cost more than some countries' total economic value, it simply cannot make its money back. And James, my dear sir, you have no one but yourself to blame for that. I'm gonna go see it sometime this week, but after seeing that 3-hour plus runtime, I'm already rubbing my temples and looking for a way to off myself. Well, that about covers the few trailers I wanted to talk about. Now, there are some movies I am genuinely looking forward to. I watched Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio the other day, and holy moly, that movie was spectacular. Guillermo hasn't let me down yet, and I've seen all these movies since Blade 2 in 2002, and he continues to be one of my favourite directors of all time. I'm looking forward to Oppenheimer, although I'm worried that Christopher Nolan will disappear up his own backside like he did on Tenet and Interstellar. If he can refrain from disappearing up his own butt and make a movie akin to Dunkirk or The Dark Knight, then I think that will be a truly spectacular movie. But I've said all I want to say on these trailers, and I shall see you in the next thingy that I do. Cheery bye, my dears. Oh, and also Willow is friggin' terrible and Disney continues to be a walking anus on the face of the earth.